We have eminent panel here today, which doesn't need much of introduction. Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, Chairman ICT-ACT, Vice Chairman Cognizant, Mr. Vishwanathan, Founder and Chairman of VIT. We have Padma Chandrasekhar, angel investor, who had spent quite a good amount of years in the for-profit companies and not-for-profit organizations, and presently part of the Chennai Angels. We have Dr. Lata Pillai, Director, Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development, and it's a great panel here. We are going to talk about how do we take the institute to the next level, what is the kind of winning strategies which has to be involved considering the dynamics of business kind and also considering the dynamics of today's educational system in the country. Over to Mr. Lakshmi Narayan.
Thank you. Thank you, Puru, and good morning, everyone. Let me add my welcome to all of you, and my apologies because I delayed the start of this session by arriving late. Sincere apologies to all of you. Let me add my special welcome to the panelists here. We're looking forward to an interesting day today. The ICT Academy Bridge program is a program that attracts a lot of people, both from the academic institution as well as the industry. Look forward to your participation. As far as this morning session is concerned, it is a very interesting topic. The context that we are all working in today is the context of the digital world. Everything is getting digitized. The digital world is impacting not just the enterprise, not just the educational institutions. It impacts individuals in a very large way. It impacts communities. It impacts human interactions the way that we have never seen before. Who would have thought that we will be able to express our emotions digitally? The most popular artifacts in the digital world are those small icons that you see, the smileys and the frownies that we use in all the interactions and the exchanges in the digital media. Provides ample opportunities for individuals to express themselves, express their emotions. And if you look at the advancements that are happening in the digital world, it's mind-boggling. Just quote one example. If you have to reach the digital services to the millions of people in the rural areas, if you have to cover about 100 square kilometers of a remote part in Tamil Nadu, we will have to install something like 150 towers to get there, which is extremely expensive. There is an alternate technology that's available. A technology that is being perfected by Google. What they do is to have balloons that are stationary in the stratosphere, providing coverage to a large area. Not just positioning them, they have a central location in New Zealand from where they can launch these balloons, and they can position it with an accuracy of about 50 to 100 meters over a city in Chile or Africa. They understand the jet streams, they understand the flow, etc., etc. As a result, Google's philosophy is any technology that does not impact billion people or more, they will not invest in. So they have to necessarily impact a billion people, and this is one such technology as part of Google X program that they are launching. So the access to these digital services will become quite prevalent, quite easy within the next 3 to 5 years. We don't have to wait too long, too far for millions of people in our country to access these type of facilities. And the second impact is, if this access is available, if all these services are available, are the people ready? Can they use these facilities? Can they learn by participating in the net? Can they conduct transactions or commerce on the net? Can they exchange ideas? Can they work, participate, collaborate with people all over the world? That's where education comes in. Educating not just the people who provide these technologies, which is what all of you are engaged in, more importantly, educating the people, millions and millions of people all over the country, to open their eyes to the possibilities of the new digital world. And that's a huge responsibility that all of us have, not just the education institutions or the industry, but we as individuals who are digitally literate, have a certain responsibility to teach and make millions of others digitally literate too. Access is available, people are knowledgeable enough, and this is not an industry or the services that's going to stop. It will keep growing. In the context of that growth, we Indians have a huge responsibility as well. The digital world depends on numbers, on huge numbers of users, number of access points, number of people who develop software, number of people who demand more and more services. And it's that number that we have here in India. Number of people, particularly number of young people, people who are in the age bracket of 12 to 25, who are considered to be digital natives. These are people who have born and growing up in the digital world. We have a certain responsibility in developing, defining this new digital world and providing all the necessary services, the beginnings of which you already see in the entrepreneurial activity here in India. From number 14 or 15 in terms of number of startup enterprises in the technology world, India has already moved to the number 4 place. After US, UK, Israel, India is the 4th largest company that has the maximum number of startups, and the number of applications, devices, healthcare products that are coming up, making a huge difference. And that's where entrepreneurship, an ability for the young people to think beyond the current, beyond today, is important. And that's a huge opportunity for people like us to collaborate and participate. So I would just conclude my remarks by saying the new digital world is full of opportunities. We in India are better positioned than any other country because of our education system, because of the number of young people that we have, and also because of the investments that we have already made. I might add that the government is creating infrastructure, the network as well as access points to 250,000 locations as part of the plan. Our challenge is to educate the people to use these services and encourage young minds to be entrepreneurial so that we can define and develop more and more services for the benefit of all globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You said all about the opportunities available in digital world, defined what the digital world as an opportunity for all of us. Let's go over to Mr. Vishwanathan, who started the institute in 1984 as Vellore Engineering College and moved on to make as an university by itself in 2001, offering 62 courses for 30,000 people. So, Mr. Vishwanathan, we just wanted to hear from you about basically running an institute, creating a leaders out of universities. What is
Good morning. When Mr. Lakshminarayan was talking about the digital world, I was thinking of our own world, our own country and our own state. They say India is a country of contradictions. How many don't understand Tamil here? I think I'll do both. Tamil Muran Thodain Solram. This country is like this. On the one hand, we have very big opportunities to compete with the best of the systems and best of the countries. And of course, he represents that world where India can compete with US or other developed economies. On the other hand, if we want to have a smart class, You must have a classroom. Recently, I visited a government school where in a hall, 5 classes are going on without any, there is no classroom. It's a hall where 5 teachers are teaching. This is on one hand. On the other side, of course, now we have buildings. In those days, half of the class will be inside the building, half of them will be under the shade of the trees. Now that has gone. But even now, I visited a primary school and there is no benches. They are sitting on the floor. I asked the headmistress, why can't you do something? And the counselor who represents the ward, she told me, they are going to improve the flooring. To sit on the floor, they want to improve the floor instead of providing benches or desks for them. I visited a college in Tiruvannamalai 2 years ago. I hope it would have changed now. There was no principal. The acting principal told me he wanted some benches for MA class students. I asked them, what are they doing now? He told me that they are sitting on the floor. Those who are doing MA class in government college, sitting on the floor. This is happening. We talk about smart cities. A smart city must have drinking water, sanitation, roads, power, etc. I was trying to find out, I know about Vellore, other cities. I just rang up Gudiyatham. I asked them how many days they get drinking water. They say twice a month they get drinking water. In Vellore, 2 to 3 days in a month we get drinking water. And power, we are not sure. We are sure of political power but not electrical power. This is happening on one side, and we have very good opportunities to compete and grow. Of course, I also represent like Lakshmana and the other side in Vellore. If you visit the VIT campus, once you enter it will be a different world. But once you go out, in fact, I hesitate to take our visitors to the city because it's so dirty. And even though we have a Prime Minister who begins with Swachh Bharat, Clean India, it has to happen. But we should not wait till everybody gets ready. We should move forward, and I want others also to be taken along with us. It's happened both in private as well as in government, of course more in government institution than the private. And this can all happen if the governments, both the central government and the state governments, have continuous dialogue with the private institutions, which is not happening so far. Now we are trying to influence the government, because now the new government is trying to form its own educational policy. We are trying to tell them that they must have discussion. After all, democracy is by dialogue. And we don't have dialogue in this country. To my knowledge, the last time the minister met the universities was somewhere when Arjun Singh was the minister. Afterwards, we never had a meeting with the minister as universities in the country. Same thing happens in schools and colleges. And that is why we have only court cases. The government and the private meet only in high courts and Supreme Court. They don't meet and discuss, because people are afraid to meet and discuss. There is no transparency in our educational system. That's what I want. If we are going to have such a big infrastructure, we must have a good foundation. Our foundation is shaky now. I want this system to go transparent, because I want the education system to go out of corruption, capitation and black money. I want to be frank with you, because you belong to the same community, the education community. It's not happening at present. We have to do this in order to compete with the advanced countries. Somebody must be able to fix his own fees, announce it openly, and take it with receipt. Is it happening now? Only in some institutions it is happening. It should happen. And the government should be with an open mind. They should talk to people, find out their difficulties. And we can also tell our problems to the government. Once this happens, I think it is possible for us to move up forward. After all, our professors are there all over the world. You go to any leading Indian, American university, you will find almost half of them are Indians in the top positions. At present, they are not coming back. And we should offer them enough support to come back so that whatever is available in US can be available in India also. Of course, we are growing, as Lakshminarayanan said. We are growing, we have a capability to grow, but it will be only a part of the institutions which will grow. Take for example our own state. What happened to engineering colleges this year? More than 100 to 150 colleges, they have admission of less than 30% of the students intake. How are we going to help them? If they want to run some classes, we are not allowing them. Suppose if BTech or BE nobody joins, or only half of the class or one-third of the class joined, he can have some other course like BSc Computer Science, BC, etc. We are not allowing them. Neither the government allows, nor the university allows. And all the colleges are suffering, more than nearly half of the colleges. How are we going to help them? Unless they are self-sufficient, they cannot invest in digitalization. It is necessary that we should support these institutions, and whoever possible, probably the associations must be strong enough, and they should be wise enough to advise them how to grow further and how to compete with the Western world. I think for universities, a bit it's easier compared to colleges, affiliated colleges. And at present, we have an organization called EPSI, Education Promotion Society of India, where we want all of them to come together, share our problems, and share our strength as well as weaknesses also can be discussed. But I find it very difficult because the private institutions see each other as competitors, sometimes as enemies. Very difficult to bring them together. Anyway, we are trying. Now about 100 and odd universities have joined, and we are trying to get more universities into it. Of course, government universities, Lata Pillai is here, she will tell you how a government institution has to suffer or how to prosper, etc. It is time now that we should join together, and I would very much like the central government and the state governments talk to us, find out the problems, and help us. So far, no help is forthcoming. We always feel that if they are kept away at a distance, we will be happy. Because when they come near, we are always face problems. That's the kind of fear we have to approach the governments. That should go. And with the new government, we are expecting closer relationship between the institutions and the government. And we can grow, because I'm able to experience this in the VIT. At least in the last 10 years, we have grown in every way, in quality, in quantity, in digitalization, in improving the teaching learning process, in introducing the flexible system where the students choose their own number of credits. They can choose the subjects, they can choose the professors, they can choose the timings, and they can complete even one semester before. These are the possible things. Our students are very good. Of course, finding teachers is a bit difficult, and finding good teachers is more difficult because we are not attracting the best of students to come for teaching. Only 5 to 10% choose teaching as a profession. The rest of them, if they don't get any other thing, they come for teaching. That's the problem. And we are not making teaching an attractive profession. I always feel that we should be like Korea. Korea, all the good students, the best students, like our students aiming at IAS, IPS, or etc., they want to be teachers. That's the kind of atmosphere which prevails. They are treated well, they are paid well, their social status is quite high, and we should be able to offer such an atmosphere in our country so that the best of students will come for teaching, and we will be able to invest more, because digitalization requires more investment. And if it is possible, the private can invest, otherwise industries also should take. At present, it's almost a divorce between the educational institution industry, except a few institutions. They don't have closer interaction with industries. It is time now that the industry and the educational institutions should come closer, at least the bigger institutions, so that it will become a model to the rest of them. I don't want only a few institutions to grow and the rest of them lag behind. All of them should grow. There is a potential. There are students still lying outside, because 14 crores of children are there between the age of 18 to 23. With all our 40,000 colleges and 760 universities, we are able to accommodate less than 3 crores. We have enough students outside. Only thing is they don't have money. They don't have financial power. And there is no national policy on loans or national policy on scholarships, so that if somebody wants to come into a college system or higher education system, he can come and study whatever courses he like. So it's also possible that we can bring all of them, so that all the colleges will be full. Now half of the colleges don't have children, don't have students. This should change. Only then we will be able to achieve our goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Said a lot of things. Infrastructure, not available in primary schools and colleges, deep transparency in the education system, connect with the government, and it's time to join together in the interest of children in the age of 18 to 23. Industry and educational institutions has come together. Various meetings there. So the government almost. So we need to listen from you, ma'am. Sir, for institutions how industry and universities work. They are different. They work very parallelly, but different views and works come together. Right? From merging the institutes and also having worked with the ICTACT, so the views are very important to us.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Well, I'm not an edupreneur. I have the least streak of being an edupreneur. But I remember 20 years back, as a part of a number of seminars that I used to speak in, I spoke of 2 decades from then, we would have edupreneurs. I spoke in the state of Kerala, and then I was kind of literally victimized and shouted at, because I said what I was trying to do was commercialize education by introducing this whole concept. I'm glad that we've reached a stage where we are discussing as edupreneurs. Since there's no specific topic that I have to speak about, and only related to my experience being in the government sector, I am one of those now, after being almost 3 decades in higher education, who feels that no longer can we talk of incremental change, we need radical change. Okay, it may not go well with many of you, but I believe we need radical change. I believe that we have institutions which are able to take that huge jump. We cannot continue to cater and continue to look only at the average or underperforming institutions, but we have to provide incentives and provide an enabling atmosphere for those who are willing to perform and have it in them to jump. Unless we do that, I don't see higher education really making its mark internationally. Having said so, Mr. Lakshminarayan spoke about the importance of digital age and the rapid changes that we are making, and the country, how it could leverage that. Once again, having been in institutions such as IGNOU, Distance Education Council, I would say we have a very outdated approach when it comes to education, because we don't encourage online learning. We don't break the barriers in educational institutions. I have personally, of course, been propagating that it's time we just broke these barriers and looked A conventional college should be able to offer a BA program. You could have half your credits in online, half elsewhere. You do it, you pick it, you shop, you do whatever, but you just need to put all these credits together, and we need to have a framework. Some people like the VIT, of course, within their system, they are able to do it, but until we are able to spread this, we may say that in the name of online education, the fear that the bureaucrats or the people who control these institutions, these regulatory bodies have is fear of misuse. But I think there's a lot of misuse happening by the rules and regulations which are in place, and it's better to have a wider, more open market where the best will survive, where the market will decide which are the institutions. For example, when you offer online learning or when you offer distance education, when you're offering distance education through online learning, I think it's foolish to say that your center should have only 30 learners. But this is the kind of rule which is there as a part of the distance learning regulatory mechanism. So, I mean, why do you restrict? The idea of technology, the idea of providing this is to provide access to a large number. But if you want to control quality, if you want to assure quality, put adequate frameworks in place, but allow institutions to tap the maximum number that they can reach out to through whatever means. We still have been talking of blended learning, but our brick and mortar colleges have not been able to go into the mode of blended learning because we still want classroom face-to-face interaction. Our emphasis is still on classroom attendance. In many institutions, physical presence itself calls for certain amount of marks. So I think we need to, just break these shackles and think differently if we have to see progress in higher education. How do government institutions perform? Well, I think the overall ecosystem is the same, whether you're a government institute or a private institute, because regulators operate in the same way, except that maybe the tag of funding is linked for the public institutions. There's a lot more of restrictions in terms of whom you can appoint, how you can appoint, and the kind of programs that you can offer. But otherwise, the overall system is the same. Not too many enablers, not too many facilitators, and hence I would think that the edupreneurs or the women who, not women, the edupreneurs who are there in the field of higher education really need to be given a free hand. Market will decide, society will decide which is the best, and I think somewhere there will be a level playing field.
You have been talking about change in policies from the government side. Good to hear from you. Now we will move over to Padma Chandrasekhar. Ma'am, you have been part of the large startup ecosystem now. You've been part of the corporate and NGOs and the startup ecosystem now. What do you expect from edupreneurs in terms of not just promoting startups from where they are, or what do you expect from them? Thank you very much, ma'am. You have been talking about change in policies from the government side. Good to hear from you. Now we will move over to Padma Chandrasekhar. Ma'am, you have been part of the large startup ecosystem now. You've been part of the corporate and NGOs and the startup ecosystem now. What do you expect from edupreneurs in terms of not just promoting startups from where they are, or what do you expect from them?
I'm going to take Jim Hacker's privilege from the ex-Prime Minister, saying what I want, not necessarily answering your question directly. So let me take a step backward. I actually really admired where you began from, Dr. Vishwanathan, because I think if you look at the pyramid in this country, those people or those children who make it to any college, it doesn't matter, even if it's government arts college or some no-name private college, they are in the elite. If you look at the annual birth cohort in this country, that's 26 million children born every year. That's a Canada that we add to this population. It's appalling.
Just a second.
I'm leaning, yeah. Okay, not to worry. I do, so long as I won't fall, I'm okay, I'm comfortable. So, let me just come back to this. And, we want to compare ourselves to the US, to the UK. In 10 years that I worked with a global philanthropic organization, I had an opportunity to, see China. to see several parts of Africa. And we look at Africa and we say, oh, we are not sub-Saharan Africa, we are not Zambia, we are not Kenya. I mean, that to me, that is bullshit. And then you look at China and say, China is a comparator, but then you look at China, it's way, way ahead because of the 30 years of investment that China has put since the Great Famine into public health, into education, and now the way they have devolved central governments, provincial government, local government, and so forth. I mean, there's a little bit of a background. Now let's go back to the 26 million children. Maybe 1 million children make it into engineering colleges, another 2 million children make it into BCom, BSc, CA, etc., etc. I mean, that's really a very small proportion. Go back and look at the 26 million children and look at gross enrollment rate in primary school, KG up to 8th standard. You will find the reported rates are 108%. How you can get 108, 110% is a different statistical issue. I won't get into that. But however, by the time you get to 10th, it's about 50%. By the time you get to 12th, it's about 30%. And then by the time you get to college, it gets to this abysmal rate. So there's a huge gap lacking there. You did talk a little bit about the government schools, the lack of infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So that is, I think the whole, if you don't have a strong foundation from the schooling system, and we're talking about gross enrollment rates and drop-off rates. We're not talking about literacy. If you run literacy tests, India doesn't like to subject itself to global standards and global tests like PISA. PISA is the global standard that you use to measure education attainment. A class 8 child in this country, the average class 8 child, cannot even do arithmetic or literacy in their own mother tongue at a class 4 level. Big challenge. We don't want to subject ourselves to global standards. We don't want to measure. We don't want to look at what we do, etc. So just coming back, I think there's a huge foundational challenge which I think there's a lot of opportunity for edupreneurs to address. And there are digital focused edupreneurs that I know who are working on that. You can work with the government system. You can work outside the government system. There are all kinds of ways to do that. Now going back to the regulation issues that both of you, addressed at the higher education level. So, we talk about, we're basically teaching shops. I'm sorry, I know you come from VIT Vellore and I'm very familiar with CMC Vellore. CMC Vellore is a first-class institution. It's not that VIT is not, but even CMC Vellore is basically a junior partner in any research that this country does, where the senior partner is a Hopkins, Johns Hopkins, or a London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, or a University of Toronto, Canada. CMC basically is like a servant that executes, but the design comes from somewhere else. So what I'm trying to say is even research output, India is extremely poor. So to me, all of these failures point to 2 or 3 issues. I think one is, somebody mentioned the 56 UGC Act and how we still haven't changed it. A parallel in medicine is the 64 Bore Act. We still live with the 64, Bore Committee Act. So our challenge is, changing all of this. And here's where I think what you said about having independent rating. I don't see why UGC should be sitting and looking at all the universities. I mean, from my perspective, all they're looking at is land and buildings. And you pointed out about, classroom size, teachers. Nothing beyond that. I don't see why you shouldn't have an ICRA and a CRISIL and 10 other kind of independent rating agencies looking at what you're doing. Again, I think there's an opportunity for entrepreneurs focused on the market to just looking at rating universities. That information will be useful to parents, universities, colleges, schools, whatever it is. I think that's an important thing. The second thing that I would say, and I suppose, I don't know whether we have government representatives sitting in this room. I'm going to assume they are. But I'm a private citizen and I have a right to say what I like. I think the biggest challenge that I find is not the politicians. A politician has to come back after 5 years or 3 years, whatever the term that he's elected. I've always found them to be much more open, yes, subject to, the money that needs to be made because the political system is like that, but open to a business case. The bureaucracy in this country has tenure. Once you become a government servant, whether you're a teacher in a corporation school or whether you're a peon, class 4 officer, it doesn't matter what, all the way up to Indian Administrative Services. You cannot be sacked. You may be transferred, but even that is difficult. There's a huge unionization. There is therefore, if you have tenure, it's a sinecure. There's no performance standards. In the private sector, if I don't perform for 2 years, I get sacked. You don't get sacked if you're in the government. So I think, to my mind, independent rating agencies, policy change in the government, I know policy change in the government is not a, edupreneur's sphere of activity, but I think the whole business of rating and then taking digital education, particularly right down to school level, I think are big opportunities for entrepreneurs. I don't know if I answered your question, but I said what I wanted to.
Yeah, but then, there is different perception coming in from you, Padma. Thank you very much. But now we quickly have ஒரு 10 நிமிஷம் we'll have a questions to be answered by the panel. ஏன்னா interaction also, sir. ஏன்னா எல்லாருமே வந்து we have come with a, for example, 5828 பேர் has been placed in VIT on a single day. So we always look at, what is that magic? உண்மையா இல்லையா? So we have vice chancellors from various universities sitting here amongst us. So what is that we need to take away, one takeaway from here, right? It could be placement, it could be following technology, adopting technology and running the institute, or making digitally, the teachers aware of the present digital revolution which is taking place. From each one of you, we want one takeaway for all of us to take home today. You have been representing industry, sir, from your side, and TAI, NASCOM. Sir has been a successful edupreneur in the country, and madam, you have been part of the educational ecosystem for years together in your career, and we have somebody from the startup ecosystem. So one takeaway we need quickly, sir. Are they going to ask me? Yes.
Educationalist here, this question is, the current situation that is prevailing in this country especially, all the colleges focus towards and keep in mind placements and work. Is it right or wrong? I sincerely feel that as educationalists, we should focus towards providing the knowledgeable education. But from day one onwards, all institutions only work towards placement and they forget everything else. And in this regard, how to go about handling it, and what are the challenges that we need to overcome in this? I request you to answer for this, sir.
Thing about the industry is that they want to hire only educated people. That's something that is unique in this country. Elsewhere in the world, particularly if you look at the technology industry, they can hire not necessarily graduates, but vocationally trained people, good programmers. They conduct contests, and people who are good technically, even if they do not have a formal education, they are able to hire, which is a system that is beginning to come here in India, particularly in the startup system. There are a number of crowdsourced way of identifying good technical talent and the material of their educational qualification. These children, many of them are school children, are hired by startup enterprises at this stage. Initial steps, very, very small. But the point that you make is very, very important. The industry has to play a role in defining, if they want talent, if they want the best brains, they should unshackle themselves from saying, I'll go only to engineering colleges, I'll go only to these people. But make themselves believe that good talent is available both in the formal educated system as well as outside, and make changes to go out and seek that kind of a talent in a different manner. Absolutely a point that the industry should take.
Vellore. So the education system in our country is, as I feel, it's very complex. So the complexity is, one thing is because of, as it is the placement of the higher education system to place. And second thing is the government and all the societies requires the high quality. And we also see that the number of engineering educations institutions, vacancies are very high. And regulatory bodies are also imposing more and more regulations or strictness in the kind of a thing. So we do not know where exactly that we are tending towards, whether towards the quality and also towards the number of providing higher educations. And on the top of that, we are also asked to go for research. So with the absence of good quality teachers as well as the students.
I think you have touched all the problems facing us. First thing is about the number of institutions. If you consider as a whole, as a country as a whole, there is not big number, 4,000 colleges. But the problem is it is focused, it is concentrated only 3-4 states. Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Maharashtra put together, we have 50% of India's colleges. All the rest of the states, some of them do not have colleges. For example, Bihar, with a population of more than 10 crores, there are only 10-15 institutions. This is one problem. So students have to migrate from their state to come to and study in these 3-4 states. And at present, we don't encourage them. Even though we are a great country of diversity, we are not encouraging students from one part of India to go and study in another part. They have to do on their own. Government does not do anything. And even now, a student who studies first year in Tamil Nadu, he cannot go study in second year in Maharashtra, Punjab or Assam. It's not possible. So this requires government support, both state governments as well as central government, UGC put together. That can solve some problem of our education system. The other one is we don't take initiative. That's why even in 10th plan, the 10th plan talked about autonomy of colleges. And they suggested at least 10% of the colleges should be given autonomous status so that they will take initiative on curriculum, examination, reforms in curriculum, updating the curriculum, reforms in education, examination, etc., which has not happened. If that is implemented, now we should have at least 4,000 colleges, autonomous colleges. We have only 400 and odd. So, of course, she must be able to tell something on autonomy, etc. She was there in those positions, and which has not been implemented, and nobody questioned it. That is on government side. On the other side, the private also, they hesitate to become autonomous because teachers feel that they will have to work more, they will have to put in more work. And managements also to be more active. Some of them, they are not active at all. So this, they feel they are safe. They can blame the university and just keep quiet. So this on either side has to be blamed. Unless we become autonomous institutions, growth is not possible. And quality improvement is not possible. It has to be done. What is the other question? Research. Research, we are, as a country, we are lagging behind. We have to do well if we want to be recognized at the world level. But research requires good infrastructure, funding, and talented people, qualified people. All the three, only a few institutions are available. We should encourage more students to go for masters and do Ph.D. For research, it requires government help. At present, we are not getting any government help except a few institutions. And we should be able to invest more in research funding. I know for the private it's not possible. Even as a university, we are trying to help, but it's not to the extent what I desire. We are able to give only a portion of what is required. This requires funding from both central government and state government, other organizations. I think this is a big point to be discussed with the government. Research cannot be ignored. It has to be taken care of, but it requires governmental support.
I think you have to rush for the inaugural. Can we share the takeaways? You know, எல்லாருமே வந்திருக்கிறதே வந்து நீங்கெல்லாம் வந்திருக்கீங்க. நீங்க என்ன எங்களுக்கு சொல்ல போறீங்க which we can put in action, which is doable?
Sir, first I would like unity among the institutions. If there is any problem, they should come together. The associations, what do they have? Now they only collect and hand over. That's the association. I don't want such a, maybe it's necessary at the time of elections, etc. You will have to help somebody. But not the association job is not only collecting and handing over. You should be able to unite all of them. Wherever problem, you should be able to represent, and we are recommending at least twice a year, there should be a dialogue between the concerned authorities and the colleges. Colleges, schools, university, whatever they may be. It will solve many problems, and these are the two things I would like to insist. And for the, as far as the government is concerned, the acknowledged leader in higher education, US, what do they do? Affiliation, approval, NOC, permission, recognition. Nothing exists in US. But yet, they are the leaders in higher education. Why can't we follow such model? all depends on accreditation. The government job is to recognize accreditation agencies, and once the accreditation agency gives an approval to an institution, it is accepted by the federal government as well as by the state government. That's what we want in India also. In order to insist all these things, we want unity among institutions.
Thank you very much, sir. Over to Mr. Lakshmi, from the industry perspective and ICT Academy perspective.
Yeah, from the industry perspective and the education institution perspective, I will first say, for the education institutions like the industry, it's expecting the government to change, not going to happen in the short term. Okay, it is very, very difficult. What we've been talking about the last 5 to 10 years. Minimize your interaction with the government. Don't go to the government as much as possible. Try and do things on your own. Private institutions, schools. I was in Coimbatore in the Indian public school. Curricular, extracurricular, co-curricular activities, phenomenal. They develop individuals. You know, it was a pleasure interacting with those type of students. I asked them, can you do all of this? Are there any regulations? Do you have to take any permission? We don't know. We don't know whether we need to take permission or not, but we are following this curriculum. Parents are happy, the children are happy, we are not being bothered by anybody, we want to continue. IB, International Baccalaureate. That is the one that got
under the control of the state government.
very
They
good.
will do it this way.
Right. So take as many things away from the control as possible. If you have to change, call all matriculation schools IB schools, as long as that remains outside the system. That's point number one. The second point is something that we in the industry will have to do, is to value the education that is provided by the various institutions, but we must also value the talent, the education and the skills that are imparted to students, young professionals outside of the university system, okay, which is beginning to happen in a small way, and that's a thrust that the industry will have to focus. And once you have some of these bright people performing well and making a mark, I think that wave will explode, and that's something that the industry will have to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Over to Dr. Lata. Ma'am, one takeaway which you could say from your exposure and experience with the government and also now.
I would, as important institution leaders, I think we need to demystify the authority with the regulatory bodies. That's just one important takeaway. We have to push that change. Unless, as leaders, we do that, it will never change.
Thank you. Ma'am, here you come from the startup ecosystem. We have seen Facebook, Google coming from universities and all that. We also love that kind of, we call them cream companies today here in our campus. So let me complete, ma'am. Since you come from the startup, what do you expect, you being an investor and all that, what do you expect? And we have seen your portfolios, you are into new age business, but I don't think that has reached the campus. As investors, as part of the startup ecosystem, would you want to say something to the chairman of these institutes?
So I wouldn't say it hasn't reached the university system. I mean, if I look at the VIT incubator system, for example, I think VIT incubation has produced a lot of people. And somebody had a question about, should I be in education, but not related to placement. The fact is, in a developing economy where constantly people are striving to move above, a poor family, lower middle class family, up the ladder, you've got to cater to placement. So I disagree that you can separate education from placement. What you can do is to say vocational is good enough, I don't need a 4-year college degree, maybe I can go lower down, and I think you will find that more and more startups are not necessarily focused on did you get your BTech from an IIT. In any case, a startup can't afford a BTech from an IIT. They can't afford even probably a BSc from a Stella Maris. So, but to that point, to what you can do, I think work much more closely with industry bodies, industry associations, invite people from industry, whether it's a startup or an established company, to work with your, faculty, to maybe come in and give guest lectures because that promotes interaction. The other thing, somebody raised the whole research issue. So I don't know if anybody looks at India's bibliographic output. For a nation of this size, we shouldn't be looking at absolute numbers. We are abysmal on relative numbers. Our scientific output, except mathematics, it's the only area in which India has good publications, good citations, good world-class theorems, and this is post-Ramanujam, not, including Ramanujam. In every other, area, whether it's medical, biotechnology, engineering, India's, citation record is abysmal. So on research, I would say try and see what you can do with industry to partner on more applied areas, not on basic areas. I really do think that there are areas where industry can work with you to take products to market. So that's, my 2 cents.